Well, hello once again, and welcome to SIM 203. In this one, we're going to be taking a look at checkbox recognition. Checkbox is, you can use a couple different ways. If you had a form where, say, we just had a Mr. and Mrs. field, and you wanted to see which one the customer had checked, you could set up a checkbox for that. And SimpleIndex would basically recognize whether it's filled or whether it was left empty, and it would give you a yes or a no. So you'd have, Mr. was checked, so you'd have a 1 as the value in the field, and you'd have Mrs. was not checked, you'd have a 0 in that field. So it's giving you a kind of a yes and no as to whether something is or is not checked. You can also use it, in a way I like to use it, is as a document separator, and we're going to take a look at doing that. So basically, before you scanned a series of documents, you could go and put a mark on the page, and we do recommend in the upper left-hand corner, because that's always going to be the same spot. It's going to be, near 1, 1, if you think of it as a graphic coordinate. And it won't move regardless of whether the document is portrait or landscape, whether it's 200 DPI or 300 DPI or whatever. So let's take a look at doing something like that. I'm going to open a job here that I have partially set up. It's just got some basic information about where the input folder is and all that, and we're actually going to create the fields as we go through this video. And for starters, let me show you what documents we're working with. In this case, I'm just going to go take a look at the input folder. And these are real estate agreements. There's a series of them. We'll just take a look here. So it's a 39-page document, and on the first page of each individual agreement, I've put a black dot. And like I said, you could do this with a Sharpie marker or just something like that, or a pen, and fill it in. So if we go, so there's one, and if I go down here to a later page, there's page 14, there's another, and so we can so that lets us know where each new document begins. Same thing here on page 27. So we're going to set up SimpleIndex to recognize those marks and break the document up into 3 unique documents when we're done. So let's go back over here to SimpleIndex. Let's go ahead and look at our job options. And like I said, I've already kind of pre-configured this stuff, so you didn't have to watch me go through that. But we're going to go over here and create our index field. So the first one I'm going to create is that Mark Recognition field, OMR field. And we're just going to call it New Document, because that's what it's telling us. When it sees this OMR field, it knows it's supposed to create a new document. And then in my second field, I'm going to create an auto number, because we're going to count. So we're just going to say document number here. So each time it sees an OMR field, it's going to increment that number. So we'll have document 1, we'll have document 2, we'll have document 3 when we're done. And I have to always give auto number fields a number to start with, so I'm just going to say 00 here. And then down in my auto number settings, you'll notice this is activated now. It was grayed out earlier. I'm going to tell it that my increment event is when it sees an OMR field. And then I'm also going to make the document number become my file name in the final output. So that's all we have to do for the index fields. Now to actually set those zones, it's just like when you're doing OCR zones that we covered in an earlier video. We just hit the Set Field Coordinates button here. It'll ask you if you want to save your settings. Sure, we do. And there's a little warning here that we haven't set the template yet, but we're actually going to do that as part of our zones. So just go ahead and tell that OK. And then we want to open a file. We'll go to the one that's in the input folder. There it is right there. So there's my little box. You notice my cursor is now got a little crosshair on it. It says OCR. I'll just set a box here. And then I tell it that that box is going to be my new document index. OK. And here's the one thing that's different than when you're doing it with OCR fields. It's telling you how many pixels it's seeing in that box that I just drew. It says there's 13,793, and that I want to set the minimum number of black pixels to consider it checked. And the idea is if there's stray marks on some later pages, somebody just swiped a pen across it or something, we want to set this tolerance high enough so that we know it really is an intended black dot and not just a few black pixels. So if I entered something low here, like say 20, then just any little random black speck that might have been picked up during the scanning or whatever would probably register as a valid mark. But since we've got a pretty high threshold here, I'm going to set it around 10,000. Just tell it OK. And we're done with that, so we can close out here. And when our settings come back up, let's go back over to index. You'll notice that 10,000 that I put in went right into the template area. So that's all there is to it. Let's OK out of here. It's telling us that we've modified the configuration, so always remember to save your changes when you do a modify. And now let's run it and see what happens. So it pulls in those 39 pages. It's saying that we do in fact have a new document. Yes, the mark was detected is what that's saying. It incremented the doc number to 1. And if I look over here, we can see that it's reading them through. And we got page 14. Once again, new document was set to 1, and it incremented that. So now we're on document number 2. And if we go down and look again on page 27, same thing. So if I tell it to save all, yes, I want to keep those values, and then release the batch. So it just exports the documents. And now if I go under View and go over to my Output folder, you can see I have 3 individual PDFs, 1, 2, and 3. And I can open those, and there we have it. So document 1's 13 pages. Document 2 is the next 13 pages. And notice my black dot page is the first page, just as we expected. And then document 3 is the final 13 pages. So there you have it. So working with OMR is pretty easy. You just draw a zone, you tell it the threshold that identifies whether it's filled in or not filled in. And then you also, in this case, we incremented a counter because we were trying to separate documents. So that's how we got document 1, document 2, and so on. But you could do the same thing for just seeing if a checkbox is filled, yes or no. That's really all there is to it. OMR is pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, we're always happy to help if you just give us a call. And thanks for watching. We'll see you in another video.